I worked probably 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night every day. Second or third lockdown, I was mentally fried.
This is Logan Naidu, founder and CEO of Kernel Global, a multi-brand recruitment group operating across Hong Kong, London, and the US. We recorded our first conversation on this show in April 2021. Back then, it was 180 staff, and the market was about to explode.
21, 22, record year. 22, we did doubled from 2019 through to 2022. Headcount doubled.
Logan scaled to 300 people. In December 2022, they had a Christmas party where his message was not what the team expected.
I think we've forgotten how hard this industry can be. We've forgotten the basics, and that's going to bite us if we don't get back to it really, really quickly.
So it was poorly received, and then 2023 was a very difficult year.
Look, by the end of 2023, we'd cut out 100 heads, took out a third of the business.
But here's what put more pressure on. In March 23, Logan just completed his second PE deal. They paid out £30 million to over 100 shareholders in the business. The most a single person got was multiple millions.
But I remember talking to my father-in-law saying, I'm really embarrassed by this. I've just taken on a load of money from new investors and we were already talking about making cuts. Even when we went the first time round, it still wasn't hard enough. So we had a smaller second wave just before Christmas.
Now, the criteria of cutting staff was brutal. Is this person equipped to survive the current market conditions? Do they have the work ethic to get through it? And when the market turns, are they going to be fit for purpose?
You're basically making a bet on people.
So here's what Logan learned in the most difficult market that most recruitment founders don't.
Everyone made money 21 and 22. If you didn't make money in our sector, you're definitely in the wrong job. But it's the behaviors around how people made money.
So the lens wasn't just revenue, it was character, it was work ethic. How did they treat clients when things were actually quite easy?
Talent will get you through the door for sure, but hard work and graft and commerciality separate everyone over a 10-year period through the cycles.
In 2024 and 2025, the business has grown again. EBITDA is now back to pre-2022 levels, but the foundation of growth now is different.
We end the year with a quiet confidence. No one's going in and going, yeah, I can't hit that.
So this is a conversation about surviving the cycles that break most growing recruitment companies, about staying level-headed when everyone around you is drinking their own Kool-Aid, and about building an agency that lasts beyond the boom. So this is the second installment of Logan Naidu's story on the RAG podcast. Logan, welcome back to the RAG podcast.
Great to be here, Sean. Morning.
Oh, good morning. It's the end of December we're recording this. Obviously, people will be listening in 2026, but April 2021 we did the episode together. Life's gone pretty quick.
Just like that.
Literally, it'll be 5 years in the new year. That is nuts. Mate, I've done a quick introduction there. I can never do it justice. Could you quickly give us the overview of you and your business? None of the detail, none of the story, just like the bird's eye view of what you're in control of today.
Sure. So founder and group CEO of Kernel Global, which not many people have heard of, but we're a multi-brand, multi-niche recruitment group with now 4 or 5 brands underneath. Dartmouth Partners being the one that I started.
Yep.
Been through 2 rounds of private equity, 1 acquisition, and a couple of organic launches.
So how many people have you got now?
Hovering around 200-ish people.
Right, 200. Is it global or is it all UK?
Yeah, across 200-ish across UK or London, Hong Kong, Charlotte, and New York.
Right. Okay. Cool. And I think you were around 180-ish 2021. Am I right?
Yeah. So we haven't actually, headcount went up to close to 300 and kind of back down. So almost full circle.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's get into it. So we don't need to go through the startup story, but can you remember, if you could set the scene of where your business was in 2021? This was like end of the lockdowns, and the market, from all accounts, was about to go boom busted, right? Gangbusters was 21, 22. So what did you? I remember Kernel was a business then. So what was the portfolio like then, if you can remember?
I think Kernel had probably just come into being around about April 21, and it's hard because all those lockdowns merge into one, don't they? Yeah. Like, were we in a lockdown? Like, which
that was the very final, because I went to London when I was drinking for a day of drinking on April the 12th, I think, which is the first day the pubs opened up, and you had to go outside, and it was freezing. Well, it was the first day, and then it never went back.
Yeah, so I think I was probably coming out of that last lockdown where we had that Christmas lockdown a year later. that really depressing, all the Christmas parties were cancelled. I was really broken. I had a really, lots of people had great lockdowns, right? The first lockdown, it was sunshine, just time with the kids. And my lockdown was appalling. I worked probably 6 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night every day. It kept a pretty good routine, but I was by that second or third lockdown, I was mentally kind of fried.
Yeah.
But we were coming out of that, and the market was starting to lift, and we started to gain confidence and momentum. Probably from September 2020 onwards, we could start to see that the recovery was happening. And then we followed the path that probably so many recruitment companies did, right? Which was 21, 22, record year. We grew like Billy-O. So I think we went into 2019 with a circa 4.9 EBITDA, dropped to about 3.5 in 2020. And then 21, we did 7-ish, 22, we did 10. So, yeah, we grew EBITDA, I guess, doubled from 2019 through to 2022. Headcount doubled, and then all the good stuff and the bad stuff that everyone did, which will be no different. Irrational exuberance, hired some duffers, made some stupid decisions, made some good decisions, managed to get another P deal away in March 23, which I think was probably
just before the market turned.
Yeah, I mean the market started to turn, but we managed to get ours away. And then spent 2 years right sizing the business and kind of hunkering down and kind of building some resilience back into the business.
So let's break that down a little bit more then. So when the market was ridiculous, what did that look like in a business of 200 people? Like what were the metrics that changed in your position?
So I suspect we're going to talk about AI and the challenges the industry are going to face over the coming years and all that kind of stuff. But in some ways, we're sometimes our own worst enemy, because those 2 years, in 2020, when you couldn't get a job for love nor money for a bit, right? You wanted to get on the phone with clients. We'd have done anything for it. And then 21 and 22, human nature, we just forget the basics so quickly. Egos expand, you take shortcuts, customer care kind of drops a little bit. Those clients that you're desperate for, you suddenly shortchange in terms of attention.
But you were literally getting like ridiculous job flow. Volume.
I mean, BD, the need for BD evaporates for most firms, right? And unless you were in one of the very few challenged sectors, everything was just so good for the best part of 2 years. And I think what we heard from recruitment leaders and managers was that there's a paradigm shift. I remember people like Robert Walters and Page putting out kind of reports saying that this is the new normal for us, and we expect this to last for a couple more years. And I remember, I don't think I was strong enough. So my weakness as a leader. But I remember December 2022. Someone reminded me of this yesterday, because we had our Christmas party in London yesterday, and I did our kind of usual end of year wrap up. And someone on the way out said, "Do you remember that one you did in 2022 where you were quite tough on people?" So I remember saying in 2022, I think we've forgotten how hard this industry can be. And we'd had a record year, but I was quite tough on people, saying, "Look, I think we've forgotten the basics. And that's going to bite us if we don't get back to it really, really quickly. We're cutting corners. We're taking clients for granted. We've forgotten how hard the job can be." And I remember that being fairly poorly received from some people, saying, "That's quite a tough message." And obviously, then the next year happened.
What were you? Because I think you were bang on, right? But what specifically was happening that made you come to that conclusion? Like, give some examples of why you came. Because some other founders and leaders would have been just riding the wave, 10 million EBIT, throwing money at the party, and just thinking, "Wow, like we're on a rocket ship."
Look, my basic premise in our industry and in life, right, is that it's hard to make money, right? And it shouldn't be easy. And if it was easy, then the country would be in a different place. We'd all be in a different place. It is hard to go out and do what we do. And so when people start feeling like the power is with them as a consultant, and you hear negotiations with clients that are just a little bit too aggressive, or there are clients that I know, I guess historically, it took us years to win, and then suddenly they're coming to you, and you hear people saying, "Oh, we're not going to work with them anymore because of X, Y, and Z, or the fees aren't high enough." And I always think that's lunacy. You stick with those people through thick or thin, right?
Yeah.
It just should be like that. That was one thing. So the way that I thought those customer conversations were being managed, and then secondly, the kind of type of people were being hired, and the idea that ignore the Gen Z thing. We can talk about that if you want to, but just the idea that, look, I just need someone to service flow, right? And so we were hiring people that I would meet, having them already been offered and starting like, I don't think you're cut out for this job, or I don't think you're right for us, straight away. And you had clearly the pitch had changed, where it's like, just come here and you'll make money, because that's how easy the job is. And so, the expectation of what the job looked like and what was required to make money. And obviously most of those people that were hired across the industry and in our business no longer work either in our business or in the industry, because
And
it doesn't work like
were
that.
you alone in this thought process, or were your leadership team picking this up and feeding it up to you?
Well, clearly someone was signing off on the hires, right? So,
Yeah.
but look, I've ultimately got to take the blame. There's no point in me saying, "Oh, our leadership got it wrong." Like, I ultimately, good and bad lands at my doorstep. I clearly was not strong enough or on the front foot enough to say this has to stop now. So I'll take responsibility for that. But clearly along the way, whether it was our talent acquisition policy, our kind of recruitment managers or billing managers or directors, we'd all started to drink our own Kool-Aid.
Yeah, it's so common, like at different levels. Because I'm being really transparent. Like, I don't talk to people at your size that often. Most of my customers are in the 1 to 50 headcount, not the 200 plus. But it's the commonality of what you just said from other conversations is there. Drinking your own Kool-Aid, like feeling like you're on top of the world. And again, I think it's bold for you to stand there at a 10 million EBITDA party and say, we need to change, like, because people wouldn't have been expecting it. So let's go into 2023 then. How aggressively did it change?
Pretty aggressively. So look, it's a really interesting, I guess, particularly for us, which was different. We were in a deal process in Q1, and ripping out headcount during that process probably wasn't feasible.
So why did you go? Why were you going through the deal process then? Let's tell that story first before we go into 23. So what was the rationale behind another PE deal?
I think we wanted some liquidity primarily for our internal shareholders, which are our staff. So the first deal we did with Literacy in June 2018, we had a much smaller employee shareholder base, 8 people that benefited from that. By the second deal, we had over 150 people that were going to get something. And so, 4 years in, it felt like the right time to do it. It felt, between the CFO and I, we felt that actually the timing in terms of going to market was right. Our sense of it's a good time to do it. It took a little bit longer than it did, because we probably started the gun a little bit later. And there were obviously a lot of people, you'd have witnessed it, and I did as well, but a lot of people talking about we're going to do a private equity event, 2022. And not many people do, because our sector's not particularly well liked. It is cyclical. It's quite hard to continually grow. Again, we might come onto it, but there's a lot of firms that got backed in 21, 22 that have had a lot of pain since then. So the thought process was, it was a good time to do it. We wanted some liquidity for staff, and thankfully we managed that. I also think working in 4 to 5 year sprints, everyone talks about a 5-year plan generally, don't they? Working in 4 to 5 year sprints gives everyone a chance to, not just take some money off the table, but just take stock, refresh the plan, and think about, okay, where do we want to be? I think there's clearly a lot of businesses in our sector that have been around for a long time that do the same thing over and over again. It's a broad church. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't say that with any sense of criticism, but I think it's quite hard to feel like we're on the same journey for 10, 15 years and still be talking about one day we'll do a deal, right? Or one day this will happen. So I think you've got to you've got to make the dream become reality so that everyone then regroups and buys in again for the next
Oh yeah,
sprints.
yeah. If you do it twice in a 4 or 5 year period, people are like, this guy. These guys are serious. They're going to do it again, and that can be, yeah. You're locking a lot of loyalty into the next phase, right? And did those 100 or so people, once they realized the value, did they all stay on the journey, or were they excited about going again?
Yeah, look, I think we've largely kept everyone we wanted to keep. We paid across 200 odd people. We paid about just over 30 million quid out
Wow.
to staff, and it was kind of based on an LTIP basis that paid out through the EMI scheme. Yeah, look, since again we'll come on to it, I guess, but since then we shut a couple offices. We shut France. We shut Germany within the Dartmouth brand. But as I see it, we've kept the key members and have hired well across the last couple of years and made the most of, I guess, a slightly disjointed market to add to the senior talent within the group.
So, what was the biggest individual payout of a shareholder that wasn't you? Can you share that? Like roughly, what did they get? Because I'm thinking, how would you motivate yourself to carry on working if you got that kind of number?
No, I mean, look, it was multiple millions was the single biggest.
Wow.
The way PE works, I guess, is that you'll get, if let's say you're due 4 million in terms of your equity valuation, you're typically going to get half out on day one or in the first couple of years, and you're going to roll half as a loan note,
Yeah.
and get some new equity. So
Yeah.
the compounding effect of that is that that 4 million might be 2 million out, and the next 2 million, if you hit plan, could be worth 8 in 5 years' time. So I think money is clearly a motivator for people, but I think more compelling is the sense that people want to be on a journey, want to feel like they're winning at work and in life, and buy into something. I think I say this quite often, right? That people will go to war for free, right? You've got the people who in Ukraine who are fighting for their country, motivated by something greater than themselves. In a clearly less severe way, people will go to battle for the business if they believe in what you're doing, and you've got to try and paint that story of, look, what are we actually trying to build here that's special that you're part of? And yes, there's a great financial implication for that
makes
as
sense.
well.
So yeah, it's life changing in the first instance, but the way it's structured, it's even more exciting to stay on and carry on. So tell us then that go back to that question of, so you're holding on to people to get the deal done. You're almost protecting, and the signs are changing. So what was that like? And then once the deal was done, what actually happened next?
Yeah, one word, scary. Kind of way, you put 6 to 9 months into prepping and getting the business ready. So Silicon Valley Bank went down, I think, on the Friday or the Thursday. And I remember talking to our banker, saying, look, if we don't get this signed in the next 24 hours, they're going to pull, because this is not a good sign. We signed Saturday morning at about 4 o'clock in the morning. I think I signed. So about 24 hours later. So it was pretty scary. We were right on the wire. So, I take, there was no genius in it, right? I think a lot of it was down to whether you believe in a high power and fate or blind luck. It was between those two. Obviously, the business was attractive, and we'd done a good job historically, but timing was as close to the wire as you can get, I think.
So what happened next?
We went into we kind of breathed out. I remember coming on the Monday. I always make sure we do this. So came in on the Monday, and we always have a kind of team leadership meeting on a Monday. And I think everyone was expecting me to start clapping and banging the chairs. And I just came in normally. I'm like, okay, kick off the meeting normal. And everyone's looking at me. I said, look, we will celebrate. We will celebrate, and we'll do it. We'll do it when the time's right. But we've got a job to do now. The 5-year plan starts today. But that 5-year plan, going straight into it, you've got new covenants to hit, and you can't breach your kind of EBITDA, leverage ratio, and all that kind of stuff. I think from about a month in, we started to look at it and go, we're going to need to restructure the business, because the market was coming off. Our headcount probably hit a high round about the day we signed. But the market started. 400,
did you say?
No, I think we were kind of just close to 300.
Right.
And we were, I think we were aware that the market was going to come off again, I would say I didn't realize it was going to come off as aggressively as it did, and for as long as it has done. But we were into, okay, we need to restructure the business. Even that thought process took probably at least 4 to 6 weeks for us to think through it around, okay, well, what does that look like, and how are we going to do that? But I remember talking to my father-in-law on the way home one day, saying, I'm really embarrassed by this. I've just taken on a load of money from new investors, and we're already talking about making cuts and the business shrinking. It just looks bad. And he kind of gave me a little pep talk around, it's unless you feel like you've deliberately misled them, which sounds like you haven't, the market's just turned, you've got to go and do your job now.
That's what there's a reason they put the money in, is because they trust you that you're building something impressive, and it would be negligent for you not to then respond to what you're seeing appropriately, right? How did they take it because I'm sure you had to have a conversation with the PE firm that you were going to restructure and make some cuts. How did they respond?
Yeah, so there's an interesting dynamic here with private equity, which hopefully is useful for others. The whole courtship process, when you're talking about the business and they're pitching why them, it's like the early stages of dating, right? You're both trying to impress if you like each other, but you're not. No one realizes that you leave your clothes on the bedroom floor, right? Or you never put your cup in the dishwasher and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you get married. And then you're into this, okay, what does it look like? And so you're still in that very early stage of trying to suss each other out and work out how's this going to work. And so I'm sure behind closed doors, in fact, I know behind closed doors, they were kind of going, what's going on with this business here? What we just bought, and how are they going to respond? And we were uncertain as to what they thought of us. Hence that conversation with my father-in-law. But I think you do find out in the tough moments, like who's my partner, right? Whether it's marriage, business, investment, and I've got to say they were really supportive, and could have kneecapped us along the way, but were supportive. I think they would say retrospectively, you guys were a really good case study of how quickly to move. Across their portfolio, they said you were one of the fastest to react and move, and we did. We cut pretty aggressively, which was deeply unpopular. Very painful for everyone involved, both the people being cut, obviously, and the people making the cuts. It's not a nice conversation to have. And we were one of the first people to do it in the market. For a business our size, I remember everyone and me getting calls from other people going, "You've gone very quickly. What's going on? Are you in trouble?" And we weren't in trouble, but we could have been.
So what's going through my mind is what were the actual concrete symptoms? Obviously, there's a feeling, but what were the, again, if you can remember roughly, what were the data points that you're just like, we have to make a change?
Job flow was falling off a cliff.
Like what
so
my data?
My biggest concrete, I can't remember what our average job flow per week was, but I could see that job flow was sliding.
Yeah.
You can then see post job flow sliding, your boarded revenue. So, contract returned, but not yet invoiced, is starting to slide as well. So you can see that coming off and coming off. Headcount hadn't moved. So your cost base is here, and your revenue started to slide underneath it. And there was no sign that job flow was going to turn.
How quick would that have put you into a position of losing money on a monthly basis?
We were never in danger of losing money. So for a business making 10 million quid, we were never going to suddenly start loss making. What we were in danger of was breaching our covenants. And so that was the concern, that if you breach your covenants, A, it looks really, really bad. B, it could be really, really bad.
By breach your covenant, you mean the rule, like the engagement that you've signed with the PE firm to protect a level of EBIT margin.
Correct. Against the kind of usually the debt leverage. There's probably 3 or 4 covenants, but that's the key one, which plenty of businesses did breach, both in pandemic and then post being backed in 21, 22. We were very close to the wire, right? But we were fortunate that we managed that process. There's no other word for it. Relatively aggressively.
So how quick and how many people were removed?
Look, by the end of 2023, I'll get this kind of wrong, but broadly, we'd cut out 100 heads roughly. Right. So it took out a third of the business.
So it took 9 months or so to do that.
Yeah. There was the phrase that we were saying internally, like, let's do a one and done, go hard, go deep, and it's done. And that, even when we went the first time round, it still wasn't hard enough. So we had a smaller second wave just before Christmas, which was the one that was the harder one, because then people really do become wobbly, and you're starting to worry about whether you're going to lose really good people along the way. First wave of any, generally people who remain, they're shocked by it because they don't see it coming, but they're the ones that can say, okay, I can see why that person's going. Second wave, you're not, I don't think you're cutting into meat, but you're getting close to it.
Okay, so what was the criteria that when you're looking at the people, what was the criteria you set to make the decision in the first wave, and then how did you adjust that for the second wave?
Yeah, I'll try and talk big picture, because I don't want anyone who was here listening feeling like they're having the finger pointed at them.
Sure.
And I've got to be really clear that it's a very unpleasant thing to do, and particularly for people who lose their livelihood.
Yeah.
But look, at a high level, from our point of view, is this person equipped to survive the current market in terms of their skill set? Do we back them to get through it? Do they demonstrate the work ethic and the hunger and the desire to get through it? And do we think that when the market turns, they're fit for purpose for where our business is going to be? You're basically making a bet on people. Can they get through it? And that was the lens through which we saw it.
I imagine 9 months later as well, towards the back end of the year, you've got data then of seeing what people have done in that difficult period as well, which helps make the second wave.
The data thing's really interesting, because I think you can look at data. A lot of this around people's gut instinct, though. So one of the really interesting things around, go back to the peak of the market, everyone made money, right? If you didn't make money in our sector, you're definitely in the wrong job, right? In 21 and 22. But it's the behaviors around how people made money that, if you look at what comes beneath that, is like, how are they making money? What's the quality of the work they do? How consistent is that work they do? And look, you and I both know there are plenty of people who made really good money in those years who don't work in the sector anymore, or have gone in house or left or whatever. And so the lens through that was actually trying to work out probably behaviors and character more than anything else. I've got a fundamental belief that our industry is an amazing leveler, because talent will get you through the door for sure. Talent will help, but hard work and graft and grind and commerciality is the bits that separate everyone over a 10-year period through the cycles. And so, the kind of beneath that data of just revenue and thresholds was like, how are they making their money, and what's the work ethic like? And that's more a behavioral pattern thing.
That's not something you can just see on a spreadsheet. That's more anecdotal, isn't it? Okay, so going into 24, you've got down to I suppose you've shrunk the business to where it needed to be. I think the year was still tough macro level.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us the story of 24 for you.
So tail of a spreadsheet, and tail of I guess emotion. So if you can think about 2023, Chris's party, pretty flat, pretty down. Probably a lot of people internally who've kept still wondering whether they want to be here or not. Is that the end of the story? I tried to put, I guess it's Christmas, right? Almost Christmas, we're a week away, so it's a good time to think about it. The Christmas address in 23 was probably, look, we've done what we needed to do to survive, and hopefully we'll kick on next year, and we're in a better place to grow. And I think 2024 for the whole of it felt pretty attritional, and we did grow. So our EBITDA grew in 2024. So 2023 we bottomed out. 2024 we grew, but it didn't feel like winning, like collectively. It was attritional. It was hard work. I say this every single year as a reminder to the team. We don't pick a peer set that makes us look good. We look at the whole market and work out how do we benchmark against the absolute best people, and particularly the niche players who can be more nimble and grow. So every single desk, who's your who's your single sector competitor that you want to say they're the best, and that's who you beat. And then secondly, I'd say, look, we leave relative performance to the fund managers, right? We're a team that seeks alpha, which means outperformance versus the market, and that's our benchmark. And 2024, where most people then took their pain, right? We were early on a year ahead. I think most people were kind of like, it's a blip. We'll see how it goes. Or we've had a couple of good years. We can survive off some of the bank profits of that. Took their pain in 24 or 25. So relative to the market, we grew, profit grew, morale was still recovering, right? And that sense that, again, I think in our sector, we expect quick wins. And so a 2-year recession or a two-year trough, all the list of recruiters articulate this better, right? Kind of long pronounced, kind of sluggish hiring market globally didn't help morale. But painting that picture, like we've actually done really well in 24. We've got the business in a good place. We've hired, we grew the team, nowhere near back to where it was, but we added selectively and well, and sowed the seeds well for what's been a very, very good 2025.
If you're going to hire someone offshore, make sure you pick the right partner. Today's sponsor, Remote Recruitment, are my partner of choice. And the reason is they put every single South African hire through a 15-point vetting system. They run a bespoke trial built with you so you see what they're like before they even enter your business. They do the final interview after proof of performance. And there's a free 12-month replacement if they're not right. So there's no like seeing random CVs and loads of interviews. It's just a really seamless process that is stringent, it's organized, and it works. And if they don't work it out, look, they'll replace it really, really quick. So you don't need to worry about national insurance, NI, setting up companies. They manage the whole piece without you worrying. Now, if you're a RAG listener, you get 5% off your first hire. You get a free remote hiring roadmap, and they've got an ROI calculator that you can look at back office and business development roles and see the impact they can have on your business. If you'd like to access this amazing offer, go to www.remoterecruitment.co.uk/RAG.
Before we go into 25 then, like, how do you stay so focused on what you've got to do when there's so many people? You're not directly involved in, I imagine, like any of the mechanisms of business development, or you're not working in the business at that level. You're working on the business and constantly focusing. Like, what do you do to stay focused, to stay optimistic, and do you show levels of vulnerability? Do you remain rock solid? Like, what's your approach to that?
I think character, an individual's character, I talked about this before we started recording, right? It's so important in leadership, in terms of like who you want to be. And I think a lot of that starts with gratitude. There's stuff that I give thanks for every single day before I go to bed. Like, obviously, I'm a Christian. I kind of pray about it, but I'm so thankful for so many things. And within work, I say this really openly, we get to do a job where we're broadly really well paid for, and some bad stuff can happen, right? Of course, bad stuff happens, but no one died on an operating table today, right? That's something to give thanks for. As my late father, who worked incredibly hard and worked himself to an early grave, could not believe. He said, like, literally all you do is have coffee and make phone calls, and you get paid so much money. How does that work? And how's that even legal?
True.
And so it's that mindset. I remind myself, I tell everyone else about that comment from my dad, because it's so true, isn't it? So firstly, I'm really thankful for the job I do. Secondly, I say pretty openly, maybe today is the last day of, it's as far as I can take the business. But, I'll go back to, I'm a fundamental believer in the grind, right? You come in, you do your best every day, and it probably will be good enough if you give it your best, right? I said this yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. Everyone in the world has the same 24 hours to make the most of their day. Obviously, some people have other pools on their time, whether they're carers, parents, etc. Right? We all don't want to be tied to work, but this sort of diverse bifurcation of thinking around the kind of 5 a.m. club and ice baths, which I know you're a bit into, and I'll go and do my
not done an ice bath for 9 months, but anyway.
It's sort of 2 hours of training before I get into work. And then the quiet quitters on the other end of the spectrum, and the side hustles, and I don't lean into work. For me, if you're gonna milk the richness out of your career and out of life, nobody needs to spend more time on Instagram or watch more Netflix. And I said this yesterday. 100% true. No one gets to their deathbed and goes, "I wish I worked harder." 100% true. Equally, no one gets to their deathbed and goes, "I wish I spent more time on Instagram." So within whatever your 12 hours or 14 hours of work, like, be really intentional about it. And I'm really intentional with how I spend my days. Like, my days are fully packed in. I do balance it. I go to the gym every single day without fail. Right, without fail, I'll go to the gym unless something's really blown up.
When do you go at lunchtime?
Free time, 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock in my diary. I go to the gym because it's a bit quieter. I can sprint, from sort of 7:45, 8 o'clock in the morning through to lunchtime, and then enjoy the lunchtime lull. And I've done that for 20 years, right? So I think I've got pretty good balance within my day. I don't make a lot of kind of time for side conversations around football or sport, which I happily chat about for a couple hours separately. But so it doesn't make me the most fun colleague out of that. But I'm really intentional about how I spend my day. And then the second thing, I feel like I've got a pretty strong moral obligation to do my best for the business because of my employment, my shareholders, my wider staff base. If I'm not doing my best for them, how can I expect them to do the best for me?
I love that. Love that approach. And when to keep the day action packed, and you give thanks the night before, when do you plan it? Is it something you do in the morning, at night? Is there a routine you have around making sure your day is as intentional as it can be?
Yeah, so look, I've got a note on my phone which has the year's targets, the year's plan by brand. I've got a note on my phone which gives kind of headcount by team, and I do check it pretty much every day. And then I'll keep a separate note. I've got a few notes on my phone where I'll look at, these are the things that I should be working on. These are the things the business needs to be working on. And then like another section around how I'm thinking about the business and my feelings towards different parts of it. But I think, it's a pretty simplistic plan, right, in terms of the way I think about the business. And I think where this job could chew you up is you get so pulled into the minutiae, right? And there's different little fire to put out that can just suck up your time. And actually, as the business has gotten bigger, part of the journey for me has been not to let that fry you. So and there are plenty of people that have been, it's an exhausting job, right? Because it's people based and they can suck time and energy out of you. And a lot of it, I guess, compartmentalizing that is just go, I'm going to park that and not think about it. And I can say my sleepless night quotient has dropped from probably being 2 to 3 nights a week at its peak of stress in 2015, 16, down to 2 to 3 nights a year now.
Yeah. And how do you decide? We will get on to 25 in a minute, but how do you decide whether something is for you to do or you delegate it? Like, do you have like a binary rule or anything that you live by to make sure that you're not doing too much of those things that suck the energy and that other people could do?
But look, we've built a fairly high quality team, and we're all on that journey together, right? I look at it, we're like a fairly young management team, even including me, and I think we're all still learning. But my view is, like, if someone else can do it, let them do it, right? One of the challenges again with, I think quite a lot in our sector, we have this sort of savior complex that I'll just jump in and I can rescue the situation. It makes us feel very powerful, and I'm like, I've come in and but if someone else can have the conversation, 90% as well as you, or maybe better than you, right? Let them go and do it. Right? Trust your managers. That's what you pay them for. Yeah. Clearly now and then you'll duck into a conversation, or someone will come and have a conversation with you. I just want to flag this to you, and but I'll just leave it back to the manager and or the director and say, look, that's for you to deal with, right? You've got to trust them to do it. I think you've also got to let people drop a few eggs.
Yeah, that's the bit that I think is the hardest even for me. It's that fear of short-term pain, like it's for the long-term gain. It's like, I don't want to drop that client or drop that role or whatever it is that you're working on.
Yeah, you cannot expect perfection out of people. We're human beings, right? And so this idea that look, I've got pretty high standards, people will know that, but you can't expect perfection out of people. So to let them make a few mistakes now and then, generally it's not going to be a calamity.
Yeah.
And if it is, then if they're good enough, they'll learn from it and probably won't make that same mistake again.
Got yeah. So 25, it's been a really good year. Let's do a quick reflection on what's happened and what have you learned this year.
So look, numbers are back up to 2022 levels. We've had a really strong year. US for us, after 2 years of planting seeds, has started to take off and started to take shape.
You've got two offices there.
We've got two offices, office in Charlotte, office in New York. Both have done really, really well this year. Still pretty small, like 35, 40 people, but started to get to what I would say is critical mass, which I think post 50 start to hit your stride. Yeah, and overall, I said this yesterday, so again, it's fresh in my mind. I said at the start of the year, I'd like us to kind of regain confidence as a business and as a group, and quietly regain some swagger. And I said I think we end the year with a quiet confidence going to next year. We've set pretty racy budget for next year, but I've got quiet confidence that we'll do it. And I think the team now have got quiet confidence that they own their budgets. I think no one's going in and going, yeah, I can't hit that. And if we deliver that, I think we'll start to look really special again.
When it comes to you mentioned like the US critical mass 50, could you just break what you meant by that down? If someone's listened to that quote essentially without the context.
So look, I think these businesses are inherently fragile, or often offices inherently fragile until you break at least 30 people. Because until that point, up to 30 people, if you look at just the infrastructure of the business, generally you've probably got very few ops people. So it's basically 27, 28 billers, including usually an owner manager. And within that, the bell curve will be probably most of your revenues made out of maybe a third.
Yeah.
And so losing one or two people is really painful and noticeable and rattles others. And it's noticeable when 25, 30 people, you've lost 3 people, that's 10% of your headcount gone. Post 50, you start to build some critical mass where it's not as noticeable. It also then starts to normalize. Actually, people coming in and out is a normal part of the business, and it's not a sucker punch. And you need to get to that stage. I mean, you know this. Most businesses don't ever get to that stage.
No, they don't.
They yo-yo around 20 people. The owner managers on the tools is one of the key drivers for everything. And a lot of residual knowledge sits in their head in terms of how they run the business. You just start to professionalize the business, and at 50, it starts to look like a better, more organized business that reflects, I guess, businesses outside of our sector in prof services.
Right, that all makes sense. And is there a I don't know, a GP or profit ratio or a split of where the revenue should be coming from that at 50, that, like you said, a third of the business probably makes most of the money at 30, 35. What should it look like in a business that you run post 50?
Look, we aim to convert at 30% EBITDA margin. So, that hockey stick starts to happen as you reach critical mass. We're still majority perm business. So, I guess NFI to profitability is relatively quick. US, I guess because of the way the employment contracts work, can be very, very quick, but starting salaries, both for us and the people we place, is much higher. So you're dropping in more cash to start off with to get them up and running. And then there's that US quirk where everyone's a salesperson. So they'll all pitch you really hard, and then you work out actually what have I got once they stop. So we started to take it a couple of years to tune into American dialogue and kind of understanding what they actually say and what they actually mean.
Yeah, I got you. And how have you run the business from an operational perspective post-COVID? I think we might have touched this in 21, but obviously you've got prime real estate in some big cities, New York, London, Hong Kong. How do you make sure, what's your plan to keeping people optimized in office, out of office? How do you run it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one. For me, it's not even a debate anymore. All right, like this whole kind of hybrid working exists, but I think the way you survive in this sector is partly how do you want to run the floor, but it's really how do you build a client base that's sticky, and it almost is irrelevant whether your clients are in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days a week, right? If they're in the US, the you want to spend as much time out with those people as possible and take your team around and show them the market and get out there. So look, my view, the best people are out seeing clients 5 days a week, and then calling candidates and building that network. The existential threat from AI and what's going to happen in our sector, it will change, but we're in a higher value part of the market, right? Where we're not just placing a job. And so my view in terms of where recruitment in the market has gone since 2008, 9, because of the last big super boom pre-21, 22, that watermark for what's required to be good in the sector has gone up every single year. TA has become definitely more sophisticated, definitely better. The downside with TA is they're stretched across so many different sectors that how can they compete with a specialist?
Yeah.
AI is going to make them more powerful. And my personal view is it's not. There's two things. It's not AI is going to take you out of a job. It's TA plus AI.
I say a lot. Yeah.
Potentially going to take you out of a job. I think businesses are going to take a long time to adapt to AI. I think, interestingly, the consumer side, so everyone's saying that we're flooded with applications, particularly at the graduate entry level, where they've all been AI'd and use whatever to write. They all look amazing, sound amazing. That's going to create an opportunity for some as well, because business response to that as well. How do we sift and assess and work out? And for us, we've always been a very in meeting. You get so much metadata from shaking their hand, meeting them at the lift, walking into the meeting room. What are they like? How do they come across? Small stuff. How do they smell, etc.? How do they carry themselves? How do they treat the receptionist? All that stuff really, really matters.
I hope you put that on the cover sheet. They were wearing John Paul Gaultier.
Yeah.
It
smells so fragrant. So look, my view is, and I appreciate this is probably deeply unpopular, right? We need to once employ about 400 to 500 people. I don't know, you have a much better read on this, but how many million people work in the sector globally? We need to employ a very, very, very small percentage of people who want to work here and stay here. So I'm talking to that, I don't know, less than 1% of people that say we want to be the absolute best. We're one of the right places to come and work.
And you are 5 days in the office. Is that the reality?
No, we have got flexibility around that. Majority of people are in our business across the floor are in a max of 4 days. Fridays is generally quieter. If people ask me, when they interview, what do you expect me? I say, look, my preference is 5 days in the office, but we've got plenty of, I guess, working parents, some part-time carers, etc., who need more flexibility. We have hired and will hire people that live very far away who will only come into the office a couple of days a month. We made an offer to someone who lives in Scotland this year. We're very comfortable with that. We think they'll be great. But for people who want big team leading jobs, they'll be around their team a lot more than less.
And you gravitate that towards client meetings and being in front of people. So if you're, like you say, if your New York office, I imagine then covers and caters for New York, primarily New York businesses, which means, it's how I was trained and how I worked in London, right? We used to literally just walk up and down Fleet Street into the city every day. That's all we did. And I didn't know anything else. But looking back, that was why we were so good. And it was incredible that we were in front of people 5 times a day on some days.
Yeah.
And
we're in cities where the biggest firms with the deepest pockets and largest wallets are literally on your doorstep. Get out in front of them, build some relationships, be useful, and like I said, mind those deep pockets of theirs.
And in a world of AI, that's the bit that it's never going to be able to do. You're actually future-proofing your business by being more traditional in the approach of getting in front of people, I think.
Yeah, and if you want to be motivated as an individual, it's future-proofing your career and your earnings.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the bit that's you're always sowing seeds for the future. Right, that's the thing. I still make plenty of time for meetings because you're just constantly kind of refilling the hopper, aren't you?
Yeah. So let's talk about your thoughts on the way your business is now going to move. Like, 2023 PE, what's the next jump from that? Is there a date or a milestone in mind that you're working towards?
Yeah, the business plan was to double the size of the business. That hasn't really changed. I think candidly, I think we've lost a year. It's no secret, but we haven't lost 2 years. So what was a 28 plan will probably be a 29 plan. We might make it up because things can move really, really quickly, and momentum can shift. And the great thing about these businesses, you can gear them up and gear them down pretty quickly. So through the cycle, I feel like we go into next year with a much larger, broader foundation. And look, one of those foundations, is people. The other foundation is cash, right? We generate a lot of cash, so your ability to staff up more aggressively and fuel people's desire to grow teams exists. What I want to be cautious on, and do make sure people remember, is hiring someone who's not going to make it. That kind of idea of bum on a seat is a bad idea. So make sure the bar never ever drops.
So no matter what happens in the market, you never go back to that 2021, 22 mindset ever.
I mean, look, never say never, because we do stupid stuff in life, don't we? So we all do. But I think trying not to make the same mistake twice, and we all have short memories. 21, 22. You remember this, and you've definitely seen this in the sector. Trying to remind people how desperate we were in 2020 to get work on, and how hard it was. And then it was like, that was different. And then you go through 23 or 24, and you say, well, it was kind of like when Brexit happened in 2016, all the credit crunch in 2009, and be like, oh, that was different back then. What is it? Is it a Charles Dickens thing quote? Like all happy families are the same, but all sad families are different, or something like that. Sad in a different way. I think all these cycles are basically broadly have echoes of the past. So trying to learn from the past and not repeat the same mistakes is critical.
So what do you think AI is going to do to your business? How do you see it affecting in positive, negative ways over the next, towards that 2029 plan?
So look, I'm pretty sure plenty. Well, I'm not sure. We have plenty of individuals using AI tools, from a consumer point of view, to help write their ads and LinkedIn posts and draft job specs and all that kind of stuff. Corporately, we've spent quite a lot of time looking at it. I think you can burn up a lot of cash quite quickly on this stuff, and people have done, not just in our sector, right? I think there's tons of money, not just developing the stuff, but people trying to implement it. I've said to our guys openly, we get one bullet at this, right? So I'm really reluctant to fire a bullet and then work out that I haven't got anything else to fire it, because if you get it wrong, you're going to burn up a lot of time and cash, and emotionally you're going to go, oh, it didn't work out, and you're going to be kind of trigger shy the second time. So I have probably spent more time looking at it, like listening. I'm generally towards the side of cautious around it, having had the initial fear of, I guess one of our team really pushing on this could be an existential crisis for our industry, which definitely made me nervous when I first heard that. But having sat on the sidelines looking at it for the time being, I'm probably a bit more skeptical, actually. I go back to what is it that our clients need from us is human assessment. You get paid for your opinion. It's not sourcing, right? In the old days, pre-LinkedIn, can you go and find me these people, because I don't know where they exist, right? So there's all like calling through lists and trying to work out how all charts work. Obviously, a lot of that is in the public domain now, but for the last 10 years, it's been less around finding the people and like tell me what they're like.
Yeah. Do it faster and more accurately than I can do it myself.
And I don't think AI yet can tell you what they're like, because we go back to what I said earlier. People can game that because they've got access to the tools as well. And I think that access to the tools is adopted faster than corporate's ability to read it. So you'll probably remember this, but there was a push, I don't know, pre-pandemic, for a lot of automated screening. Like just tons of automate. But how do you automate screening out when they all look the same and they've always used the same tools to write their application forms? So that bit's so much harder. I had a friend of mine that I used to work with and now works as a fund manager, who just texted me about 2-3 weeks ago saying, "What are you guys doing with grad hiring? We are inundated with applications and we cannot work out how to deal with all these applications." And his job is not hiring; his job is to run money for the fund. And I think again that creates an opportunity for us as a team that does graduate hiring in one of our businesses, and for the wider sector. Assessment and is a huge, and fit is a huge opportunity for our sector.
What do you think of, like, what's the approach to hiring junior talent in your own business? Because I think globally in all sectors, I think one of the biggest conversations is if AI removes that need for the junior talent, short-term profit perhaps for businesses, long-term pain because there's no one coming through. And again, I think it's evident in the recruitment industry. There's a lot of businesses saying, well, I'm not going to go for the junior talent. I'm going to get a senior person plus AI. They're going to explode their potential. What are you doing on that front?
Look, we will still hire graduates or entry-level people. There's obviously a backdrop to in London with the cost of hiring a graduate. The trade used to be we hire someone that's relatively cheap versus a two-year person. They will work their socks off, and we train them up and kind of put quite a lot of time and effort into getting them ready. And you probably had a hit rate of maybe 2 out of 3.
Yeah,
you've got. I don't want to go into the whole Gen Z thing, but you've got, I guess, a cultural shift post-pandemic around what Gen Z expects out of the workplace, which I think in a slightly more recessionary market has started to shift quite quickly when people are struggling to get a job, but probably won't revert back to where it was in 2018, 2019. Governmental changes, London living wage, national insurance, plus the employment rights changes have made hiring juniors and entry-level people scarier, right? It's more expensive. There's a greater risk to the business. And so I can see why a lot of smaller businesses say we're not going to do it anymore. And then that I guess that shift in I've now got to pay an entry-level person in London close to 30k and realistically close to 35k to make it even tenable total comp, or I can hire a person with 2 years experience on 40k. So again, I feel pretty passionate about this. We've got to train up and give opportunities to entry-level people. Otherwise, we've got no future for them, the workforce, the country. And I think some of the governmental initiatives born out of a good place are going to make companies risk off in junior hiring, alongside a backdrop of quite a tough market. But I think I personally think it's trying to do good, but it's not been thought through well enough.
Yeah. So you'll remain hiring grads in the UK as well as
but not in the same volume. Right. I guess at the moment we've got there's so much optionality with people with 2 years experience because the market's been deflated. Plus hiring experienced people with 8-9 years experience. And I know a lot of firms won't do this, but let's say they've been on that journey and I had equity in the business and it's not going to pay out, or we got PE backed and we breached our covenants and that's not going to pay out. I think there are plenty of experienced people that are back in the market, even ones that spun out and set up their business typically at the tail end of 21, 22 and have just found it a bit harder and looking for a salary again. I'm not averse to those because I think a lot of them within the right infrastructure are really good.
Yeah, agreed. So to summarize what you've said, maybe I don't get this quite right, but you're taking your time with the kind of approach to how Kernel approaches AI, and you believe it's about what, like I say, one shot. So one investment, one approach, one strategy, and not getting that wrong. And what do you think? So you mentioned TA plus AI will be a big threat. But we had a call a few months ago and you said to me, you used a phrase which I loved. You were like, everyone said the internet was going to do similar and it actually made us busier. And AI, like you felt like AI was going to be the same. And I agree. I think the more AI I've adopted, it's not slowed me down. It hasn't given me like time off. It's meant I can just do more. And when you're wired that way, you do. So Yeah, well, I guess a bigger conversation about AI and the future of recruitment. How would you describe where your lens is today?
Look, I think I'm going to sound like a sort of 1990s dinosaur, but I think it would change the way we work, but maybe not necessarily for the better. And I'm fascinated by the endless amount of tools that can exist in recruitment, and actually stripping a tech stack down to something pretty basic um, is really important. One of our some of our best people, give me a phone and a PC, that's all I need, right? And in some ways, it's kind of true.
Yeah,
The distractions that exist on your phone. I mean, these things that we're on were meant to make life so much easier, and in some ways they are. Like we're not mailing or faxing or biking books of CVs to people. Um, but my suspicion is that average productivity per head across our industry has not moved a bean since the 1990s. I don't have the data, but I suspect we still talk about £1 million billers being really, really good in our sector. And £1 million biller was really, really good 20 years ago when I was starting out.
and what was
So
a million worth then?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, I was saying, like, I was £1 million biller in too long ago, right? But that was, my average fee was 15 grand. Nowadays that must be worth, two-ish, two and a
yeah,
half.
yeah,
But we expect the same number, and so it's not made us more productive. There are just more distractions that actually make you less productive. So
yeah.
will AI contribute that? I think it will make the job cloudier, as I go back to applications, um, and the read on people being tougher. So I think it'll go back to, have you met them in person? So I may well be wrong, right? There'll be someone in Silicon Valley working on something that's gonna prove me wrong, and we're all gonna automate it, and but I suspect not. I do think the challenge will be for people booking jobs. So let's say carers for the NHS, where you just need a carer, and you don't need the best carer, or fit's not really important. A lot of that will be automated,
I think so.
I think.
Yeah, I do. I think anything where it's more of a pure objective line, can they do this? Can they do that? Have they done this? That regardless of soft skills, I do agree. I like how, I guess my final question on this, because I don't want to keep stressing and we're running out of time, is just, what's your balance with the noise of not ignoring it, so you're ignorant to it and you're actually going to miss out on knowing what's happening, versus protecting your peace and your focus? Because I deleted all social media. I've deleted all news. I only use LinkedIn. I find it productive. I find it interesting. I find like I learn what I need to know. And even that, I've time boxed how I use it now. And maybe I'm missing out on certain things. I believe in simplicity too. I've released an AI training program, which is about just making money from one platform, OpenAI, not buying any more tools. I believe in that. So what's your approach to that as a human, never mind as a leader of business?
Just don't get distracted. So many things can distract you, of course, right? Don't get distracted. And as fascinating as it is, it's a small facet of the job, right? So I don't want to be naive to what's going on, but equally, I think there's so many things that can distract you every single day and blow you off course.
So would you actively not read those? Like, you don't read articles or news around AI. You stay away.
I do read it, but I don't get sucked into it. I mean, 6 months ago, everyone was saying that it's the end of the industry, right?
Yeah.
And we're still here. So let's not get too carried away.
Logan, I always enjoy talking to you because you are just so level. I think you're so level-headed. You're so you're calm. You're calm in a storm. I think we spoke in the pandemic. I felt it there, and I hope people have listened to this and gone, you know what? I hope he's right.
Me too.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy. You got so much going on. I know
Always
people
pleasure,
benefit from this. I definitely want to get you back on again. Hopefully not 5 years this time, maybe 1 or 2, closer to that 2029 date. And if anyone's listened, anyone wants to talk about joining your business or just picking your brains because they're impressed with what you said, is it okay if they drop you a LinkedIn message? Is that the best place?
Always happy to have a chat with someone. I'll always make time for people.
Yeah, you're an absolute legend. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful Christmas, even though people are listening to this in 26.
Yeah.
Enjoy the break.
Happy Christmas, mate.
Thanks a lot. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the RAG podcast. If you haven't already, please do subscribe wherever you listen to this show. As the more subscribers we get, the more people will listen and the more recruitment owners we can help. As a recruitment founder, you must know that things are changing. AI is everywhere. Cold outreach is getting harder and job boards, well, they're not what they used to be. But personally, despite the negativity, I believe the future is the greatest opportunity of our lifetime in recruitment, because for the first time ever, a founder with 5 recruiters with a clear niche and the right systems can build the kind of influence, reach, and profitability that used to take 500 recruiters and a global office network. The agencies that are winning right now aren't necessarily the biggest, but they are the most visible, the most trusted, and the ones building inbound demand. At Hoxo, we're working with clients who are running multiple 6 and 7 figures in net profit, outperforming the negative noise and headlines. So, to explain what these guys are doing, I've created a brand new free masterclass video for RAG listeners. In this video, it's less than 10 minutes long. I'm going to show you what these businesses are doing differently from the rest. So the link's in the description. Fill in the form, watch the video, and see exactly how this system that these clients are using could work for your agency. Good luck.